Israeli army during the 22-day assault on the Gaza Strip earlier this year are back in the spotlight with the arrival of the UN delegation in Gaza this Monday. The 15-member team will be investigating whether possible war crimes and other violations of international law during Israel's military assault. It's headed by South African Judge Richard Goldstone, who is the former chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunals for the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda. Israel opposes the investigation, denies the delegation visas, forcing them to enter Gaza through the Egyptian-controlled Rafah crossing. Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak met with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in New York Monday and said the UN should investigate Hamas's rockets and not allege war crimes by Israel. He later told reporters Israel would not cooperate with the investigation.
From our experience, we well know that they will never be able to talk to the other side and to penetrate or to interrogate the series of terrorist operations along years, including thousands of rockets and missiles fell upon the heads of Israeli citizens in order to get an unbiased conclusion. And knowing the procedures by which such operations are taken, I don't think that Israel has to or will cooperate with this interrogation.
Human rights groups and Palestinian officials say over 1,400 Palestinians, including over 900 civilians, were killed in what Israel calls Operation Cast Lead. Israel disputes the figures, claiming less than 300 civilian deaths. The Israeli Defense Forces-led investigation concluded last month there was no evidence of serious misconduct by its troops. I'm joined now by the renowned Israeli journalist Amira Haas, regular columnist for Israel's Haaretz newspaper. She spent more than a decade living in and reporting from Gaza and the West Bank, the only Israeli journalist to do this, and returned to Gaza this year, a few days after the official end of Israel's assault. She spent the next 4 months living in Gaza, documenting accounts of the war and its aftermath. She is the author of Drinking the Sea at Gaza, Days and Nights in a Land Under Siege, and reporting from Ramallah, an Israeli journalist in an occupied land. Her latest book, out later this month from Haymarket Books, is a diary written by her mother, Hannah Levy Haas, of surviving the notorious Nazi concentration camp Bergen-Belsen. It's called Diary of Bergen-Belsen, 1944-45. Amira Haas joins us in the Firehouse studio now. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. The latest news of the UN delegation headed by the jurist Richard Goldstone of South Africa being denied visas, so they're going through the Rafah border controlled by Egypt.
This is not the first delegation and the first investigation committee that has been denied Israeli cooperation. There was one by the Arab League that came in February and also did not receive any cooperation on the Israeli part. And it's very strange. If they didn't have anything to hide, if the Israelis didn't have anything to hide, they would have gladly cooperated and given information to those very esteemed jurists who've done a lot of important work dealing with other investigations all over the world. John Dugard led the other delegation, the first delegation of the Arab League. John Dugard is South African, just as Richard Goldstone is. And Richard Goldstone is also a Jew. And it is quite telling, or it is even incriminating, the Israeli refusal to cooperate with them.
What do you think they're hiding?
The truth. The truth that it was not an attack against the military threat, because the military threat that Hamas poses is very minor. Israel for years has had the need to exaggerate the Palestinian military threat. It served not only Israeli needs, it very often served also internal Palestinian needs to exaggerate their own threat to Israel, because that's how they could maybe get more popularity in the Arab world, outside and inside the Palestinian community. So both this exaggeration served both parties. And of course, Israel wants to hide. Israel built a presentation of the reality, it didn't allow the reality to come out easily, the reality of indiscriminate attacks against civilians, mostly civilians. I was there for 4 months. I found it hard to find I mean, the majority of people that I met, bereaved families, people whose houses were destroyed, people whose houses were occupied by the army, people who were victims to missiles attacks, either by drones or helicopters, or bombs dropped, or being killed or wounded by bombs dropped by war jets. I found it hard to find Hamas, direct Hamas activists, let alone combatants, or people who are known to be combatants. There is no way to hide this. There is no way that the Israeli figures about casualties is correct. I mean, I asked the Israeli army to give me their list of, which they say about 700 casualties that they claim, or 1,000, I don't remember now. They refused to give me the list. I wanted the list to check name by name and then to compare with the list that Palestinian Human Rights Organization compiled and to see where the differences are. And they said they could not give me the list because this was disclosed their sources. In one specific question about 2 women who were killed by short range from a tank, I asked, are these 2 women included in your list of casualties? I didn't get an answer. So the Israeli refusal to cooperate with information is very telling. It's true that also Hamas are not telling much, but by being there, of course, you learn a lot. They don't tell much because I think they don't want to tell that, or they don't want to break the myth that they could stand up against the Israeli army. They could not stand the Israeli army, and this is not shame. I mean, the discussion is whether whether if you want to liberate the Palestinians from the Israeli occupation, whether the armed struggle, or I call it the symbolic armed struggle, is indeed the way. This is the discussion. They have not. When you look at their abilities, when you look at their the weapons that were smuggled in, those who sent them weapons did not send them sophisticated weapons at all. And there is no way they could stand up against the Israeli army. And this is something that the Israelis, both the Israelis and Hamas, I think, want to hide.
And Ehud Barak, the Israeli defense minister, meeting with Ban Ki-moon Monday, saying the UN